Okay, so after going over the PowerPoint, hopefully you now know to find the total score, you need to start by finding the raw score. And the raw score is the sum of the other 3 marks after you've taken away the lowest mark and the highest. So take away 7 and 5.5, you're left with these, 6.5, 6 and 6.5. So sum means add the total. So I'll start by adding all them up, which is 19. Remember, you got calculators, so use them. Now we know the raw score, we're going to multiply that by the dive difficulty. So the dive difficulty is 1.8, so the raw score is 19. 19 times 1.8 is going to give me an answer of 34.2. You get 1 mark for adding up and finding 19 as the raw score. Okay, this next question. Tom's raw score is 24.5, his difficulty is 2, and Dylan's is 22.0, and his difficulty is 2.5. Who's got the higher total score by how many points? The only way you can do that is by using these two to find it. And as we know from the previous question, you multiply the raw score by the dive difficulty. So Tom's is 24.5 times 2, which is 49. Dylan's is 22.0 times 2.5, which is 55. You get 1 mark if you've done that. And then your final mark for Dylan, and he has 6 more points. Okay, with this question, it's all about understanding how this table works. Graph. So when the dive difficulty is 1.8 is lower, the raw score was higher, whereas the higher the dive difficulty, naturally the raw score is lower because it's harder. Saying he wants the highest total score possible, which of these dive difficulties should he choose? So again, you know that to find the total score, is the difficulty and the raw score multiplied. So I'm going to do 22 times 1.8. I'm going to do 1.9 and multiply that with 21. I'm going to do 2 and times that with 20, 2.1 times that by 19, etc. and compare all my answers. So the first one, 22 times 1.8, 39.6, not a bad score. 21 times 1.9, 39.9, a little bit better, so it's going up. 20 times 2.0, 40. Okay, so that's now obviously the highest. But next one anyway, 19 times 2.1, as you can see, it's starting to go back down. 18 times 2.2, 17 times 2.3, all of them are going back down now. So I'm going to stop. I'm not going to keep going because obviously the graph goes down perfectly. So inevitably, so are our answers. So out of all of these, where have we peaked? Well, we've peaked at 40. So which dive difficulty should he choose? So you get 1 mark for attempting to work out a couple of them. Second mark would be for showing 40 is the highest. And your third mark, Jamal should choose dive difficulty 2. Okay, so before I go on and have a look at the hat, I just want to try and get my head around this. 1F is the same as 4N. But 1N is the same as 3Rs. So that's why I've written the 3R, 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 because they're all exactly the same thing. Now, when you are comparing the cost of the hat, you can either change this F all the way to Rs or vice versa with the 60R. So it's entirely up to you which method you've done, and I've covered all of them. So let's have a look. What I've done is I've started off by knowing if 1F is the same as 4N, but we know the hat is 6F, I've multiplied by 6. So 6F means I've got to multiply the N by 6 is 24. So 6F is the same as 24N. So 24N is the cost of the hat so far. But remember, Lara has got Rs, so we now need to change this to Rs to compare it. So what have I done here? Well, I've written down what I know, which is 1N is equivalent to 3 Rs. I've now got 24, so I'd multiply by 24, which means I must multiply the Rs by 24. So 3 times 24 give me an answer of 72. Remember, you've got a calculator, so use it. So I know now the hat actually costs 72 Rs. But Lara had, if you look up here, 60. So does she have enough? Well, no, she's 12 Rs short. Now, if you compared it any other way, you would have had, you need an extra 1F or 4N. So either way you've done it, you should have those two answers if you've compared it the other way. Okay, you need to make sure you're reading this properly. The first fairground ride starts at 2. 20 people on each ride, so after 2 rides it'd be 40 people, 3 rides 60 people, etc. A new ride starts every 5 minutes. Just before the ride opens, 200 people are in the queue. A group of 50 young people join the back of the queue. So this is the first error you could have made. There's 250 people now, not 200, because the 50 people have joined it. They know the last ride they can go on is at 5 to 3. So we know there's a ride every 5 minutes. So if the first one's at 2 o'clock, the last one's at 5 to 3, we need to find out how many rides there are in the hour first. So, albeit we want to find out, will they all be able to go on? So I've done 55 minutes because I know there's a period of 55 minutes from 2 o'clock till 5 to 3 when the last ride is, divided by 11, which tells me I can have 11 rides. However, you've got to be careful. I've got to add another ride on because, don't forget, the first ride is at, right, make a note here, 2 p.m. So you're starting from 0, you don't start from 5 past, which is why I've got to add another ride on. What I do know then is if there's 12 rides, there would be 20 people on each ride. 12 times 20 is 240. Well, how many people do we have to try and get on the ride throughout the whole hour? 250. So unfortunately, no, there will be 10 people left over. So you can still pick up marks here. 3 marks available. If you forgot to add the 1 on and then done 11 times 20, you'll still get a mark. But obviously, and then if you'd have a different answer, whatever your answer you've got, if you've written it here, you're still not going to be enough, then that's fine. But for the full 3 marks, 240 people, 10 people left over. Okay, for this question, let's start by finding out all of the different numbers, because they're different shapes, they've got to be different numbers. So let's find out all the different combinations you can add to get to 11, which is what I've done here. 1 and 10, 2 and 9, 3 and 8, 4 and 7, 5 and 6. I'm not then going to go 6 and 5 because obviously we've already written them here. So now, knowing that they could be any of these numbers, I'm going to repeat this, but instead of putting the add sign in, I'm going to change them all to multiplying. 1 times 10, 2 times 9, etc. Look at all my answers. Well, 1 times 10 is 10, 2 9s are 18, 3 8s are 24, 4 7s are 28, and the last one, 5 6s, is 30. So 30 is the biggest number. So as long as you've identified these different combinations of numbers, you'll get 1 mark. 30 then for your final mark. Okay, similarly, the next question, as you can see, this time they're not whole numbers, so it's a little bit trickier. So I'm going to use my previous answer to know that 5 and 6 was the biggest, and that added to 11. So I'm going to just take off 0.5 from 5. So go down to 5.5, which means, you're going to add 0.5 on, which means I've got to take 1 off there. 5.5 and 5.5 is 11. I'm also going to try taking off 0.5, so 4.5, which means I've got to add 1 on there. And those two combinations there should give me my biggest answer. So as you can see on the right, 5.5 times 5.5 is 30.25. And then 4.5 times 6.5 is 29.25. So the biggest possible number I can get is 30.25. Again, 1 mark if you've noticed or tried to use these decimals. Second mark then for trying to multiply. Third mark, obviously, 30.25. Last question. Each game has 3 players. The winner of each game takes part in the next round in a new group of 3. So every single game we know is going to have 3 people involved in. Here it breaks it down for you. Round 1, obviously if you win, you go through to round 2, then the same there, the same there. So hopefully in round 4, there'll only be 3 players left. So let's try and figure out how that's going to work. Well, they're nice. They tell us that 81 players start in round 1. Well, remember, what do we know? 1 game means 3 players. So, spelling it, not great. I apologise. Well, I'm going to start by dividing by 3 then to find out how many games there are. So 81 divided by 3 is 27 games. And if there's 27 games, there can only be one winner. So there's 27 winners. Now, that means going into the next game, we have, or the next round rather, 27 players. Again, three in each game. So I've divided by 3 again, which is 9 games, 9 winners. So round 3, 9 players, which means divide by 3 games, which means 3 winners. And that takes me to round 4, which makes sense when there's only 3 people left. And 3 divided by 3 means 1 because there can only be 1 winner. So, the question says, by the end of the quiz, how many games have been played? Well, 27, 9, 3 and 1 was all the games played. So we add those games up, which is a total answer of 40. Now, if you've tried to divide 81 by 3, you get a mark. And then your second mark is for dividing by 3 for the next couple of rounds, and your third mark is for the answer of 40 games altogether. And that's us complete.